Hi loves, it's Elle and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. I'm getting a lot of requests about foundation and all about tips and types of foundation. So over the next few weeks, you're going to see quite a bit on this topic. So I hope you enjoy it. The first thing we're going to talk about though is something that's been asked about me a couple of times, actually several times, and I find it a really interesting topic. And it's all about how to not only customize your foundation, but really more about how to customize coverage of foundation. Okay, so if that sounds interesting to you, keep watching. And before we get started, hit the subscribe button, share this video with somebody you think might like it, and let's do it. All right, so customizing foundations. I have a video on it. I will put the link below so you can watch how I customize foundations for my clients and also myself, because honestly, your needs change every single day, whether you are going to, a wedding, or you're going to dinner with your friends, or you're just running to the grocery store or picking your kids up from school. I mean, really honestly, that's why we all kind of have several different types of foundation, is because there's different needs for each thing. So what I'm going to be talking today about is how to customize an everyday foundation. For me, I love, and my tip number one is to start with a tinted SPF, okay? My favorite one to start with right now is either EltaMD Tinted SPF or this JOSIE MARAN. I would go with the EltaMD Tinted if you are more oily to combination. If you are more normal to dry, I would go with the JOSIE MARAN Argan Day Moisturizer SPF 47, and this is called, it's her Radiance one. So it has a little bit of, you can see light reflective qualities to it, and it also has a little bit of a blurring effect to the skin. Not a ton of coverage, but just enough to start the blurring process. Now, if you obviously have watched me for long enough, you know that I really don't love full coverage foundations. They're just not for me. So how I like to make it look full coverage in certain areas, but still make it look like skin, and this is a technique I use all the time with clients. First step is to use that tinted SPF. We are filming with a little bit of natural light today, so I apologize if it kind of gets darker and lighter outside in the light. The second tip I'm going to give you is to use a regular skin-like foundation. So not one that basically you can use on an everyday basis. So one that's not too heavy, not one that's too light, just one that is a standard finish foundation or a standard coverage foundation. I typically love the Aqua foundation from Kojin Do. I think it's a beautiful foundation. It goes very well with my skin. So I'm going to take just a couple of pumps on the back of my hand. For my skin type, I'm more dry to normal. I am going to use a damp beauty blender. Now we're going to do this just as we normally would, but we are going to just give a light wash of color to the point where you feel like your skin is pretty perfected. And I will scoot you in here in just a few moments. All right, so here we are. I have a very light wash. I've only used 2 pumps of this foundation. Again, this foundation is a light to medium coverage on a damp beauty blender, so it's going to sheer that out even more. All right. Now, if you have oilier skin, feel free to go in with your more mattifying foundations and a foundation brush if you would like. But the point here with our second tip is to give just a nice coverage that if you were to go outside, you would feel very comfortable and no one would think that you had, caked on makeup. My third tip is to grab a dry beauty blender. Please don't judge me for having a dirty beauty blender. I'm sorry, I just forgot to wash it. I did wash my other one. Then it is to take a concentrated drop formula. So I'm going to be using my new love obsession is the number 7 Match Made Custom Blend Foundation Drops. Now, I understand that this foundation is meant to be mixed into either other foundations or a moisturizer or a primer. I understand, but I use it in a different way. You can even use the Cover Effects drops. You can use the Derma Blend drops, any kind of foundation that comes in a concentrated version. Now, this usually a concentrated version are pure pigment, and they usually are matte for the most part. And they actually have a little bit of an oil consistency to them, and it's just because they have a tendency to dry down. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take just a couple of drops on the back of my hand, just like this. And wherever you see that you need a little more coverage, maybe if you have rosacea on your cheeks, that's where you're gonna need a little more coverage. Maybe you have some acne right here or some melasma that's popping up on the forehead, and you want a little more coverage there. Or, you know, any kind of ailments that you want to cover up at that time. And this is why we customize it, because it changes per day. For me, honestly though, this is my big kind of problem area right here. I have KP right here as well, so that's not really going to cover that up, but it's a lot of redness underneath it. On my forehead, I have a tendency to have some breakouts right here in the middle, but then the rest of my skin, for the most part, doesn't need a ton of coverage. You would use this technique, again, to get that more skin-like quality. I'm going to be using it on a dry beauty blender. The reason being is because I don't want to add any more hydration. You could also do this with a stippling brush. So a brush that has a little more of a flat top and has a dense bristles. So I'm going to take this, dip it right into my concentrated drops, and you literally are just going to cover up. This actually is not the same color. So you ideally would want your second foundation to be the same color as the first. And what you can do as well is you can mix these drops, as I said before, into your foundation and get a little bit more coverage as well. But I want to show you. So here it's more concealed, and here it is much more obviously skin-like, okay? For me, I have larger areas I feel that need to be covered up. Again, if you've been watching me long enough, you know I always put more foundation on the sides of my cheeks. It's just my thing, okay? And then that's all I will do. I'll leave it all just as it is. And maybe on the forehead right here, kind of where I am breaking out, I'll just add just a touch more coverage. Now, you will see a lot of makeup artists and other people on YouTube, which I will do with clients. I just have an itch right here. But they will use almost like a pointillism. So basically, they will take a very fine tipped brush, dip it into some concealer, and then pinpoint over acne marks, pigmentation, things like that. For me, that is not an everyday solution. I don't have time to do pointillism on my face every morning, so this I have found to be kind of a lifesaver and something that makes me feel really good about my skin. Now, the reason why I choose to use or recommend for you guys to use formulations that are like this, which are concentrated pigmentation that are meant to be mixed into other things, is because usually they have a very long staying power quality to them. Usually they honestly will last all day long, they won't move, and they're matte. And usually when you are trying to cover up something, it is either an acne breakout on the face, or it is something that you really don't want to expose during the day. You want it to last, okay? And so here is my skin fully concealed. It doesn't have a ton of coverage. If you were next to me, I don't think that you would think I have a ton of makeup on. Of course, I will show you how to set this as well and how to make it look even more skin-like. I'll be right back. All right, love, so I just threw on some concealer and some stuff. Now, I have nothing else on. There's no powder else on except for under my eyes like I normally do. Now, if you are more normal to dry, dehydrated skin, I would suggest taking a luminizing powder. So the Hourglass Mineral Veil, the Charlotte Tilbury loose powders, your Hourglass powders, but I thought we would do something different since we haven't seen her in a long time. This is the Stellar Haze powder. It's fantastic. It gives a blurring effect to the skin, but yet sets the makeup. So I'm going to take it on a big fluffy brush. Pack that brush like this. I'm going to tap off a little bit of the excess, and I'm going to start to just gently tap and then buff. And this is a hydrating powder, so even for my drier skin types, it's not going to leave your skin looking dry or dehydrated or anything of that nature. It's just going to look flawless and perfected. Also, by using an illuminizing powder or a powder that has a little bit of shift to it, again, it's that optical illusion. You're not using a full coverage powder, one that's like a foundation. It basically will give an optical illusion of a shift and a more even skin tone, as well as melting the two kind of formulations of the foundations together. All right, so last few tidbits. You absolutely can do this with a tinted moisturizer if you would like as well, or a CC cream or a BB cream. What you're gonna do though is I would recommend mixing these drops into your CC cream or BB cream just in the places that you need it. This technique does work better when you use just a regular coverage foundation first. But I can't tell you how flawless and approachable the skin looks. I mean, the forehead, you can barely tell I have anything on. So again, it's all about customizing it for you and where you need the extra coverage. So I hope these tips help you figure out where to customize your foundation and how to. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much for being here, and lots of love from me to you. Bye, loves.